First question, Josh, is I know single moms struggle, but isn't that primarily financial, not just about not having a dad? If a single parent or divorced parents can afford things like private school and tutors and the other things that a kid needs, doesn't that make up for the loss of a mom or dad in the home? If you have enough resources, doesn't that offset the bad incomes?
Well, studies would tell you that single parents are not in that. Uh, Let me start over. Studies would show that single parents are not going to be often the highest income earners. They're not going to have all the resources necessary. It's probably the exception that has just an abundance of resources. But also, if resources were all that was required, I mean, we can think of that famous book that came out, Two Parent Privilege, by, I think it's Melissa Kearney. We wrote about this at our Substack, thembeforeus.com's Substack. You can go there and check it out. They essentially, it was arguing that it is just a resource game. And so two people provide double the resources, including time and money. And so as long as you've got just an abundance of that, you're going to be good to go. And the argument I made in the article was, then why not three or four? If one plus resources wins, two is better, three would be better, four. But we know that's not true. Again, the data just shows that. And so, what even an abundance of resources, the ability to hire a driver, a nanny, maybe you have an inheritance and you're just able to sit at home with your kid all day long, giving them all the attention they want. All of those situations necessitate, however, the loss of a biological parent. By definition, if they are a single parent, they've lost one and it took two to create. Now, whether that's a tragedy or it's on purpose or it was a created, by a single mother by choice, all of those situations still have the child suffering something that causes a level of instability that affects them socially for the rest of their life. And so, certainly, the high income, ability to go to a good school, ability to live near family, other family, the ability to spend lots of time with your child versus being in a factory or a service job, all those things are really good. And anyone would tell you that those would all increase a child's outcomes over time. What we are saying though is what you can't erase is the loss, and the loss will have a social outcome just per the data.
Yeah, and I'd say if we could compare, I can't pull all these stats out of my head, off the top of my head right now, but if you could compare a married mom and dad with children and they have enough to pay their bills with a rich single parent that they've got everything they need except two parents, that mom and dad with them. I just think the outcomes show that married mom and dad have their children have better outcomes. And I think that's a little bit, that flies in the face of what our culture thinks is kind of like what you're saying. They kind of claim it really is about resource allocation, and some kids get to go to a good school and some kids don't get to go to a good school. And that's the reason they have bad outcomes. Or some kids have a lot of money or they look a certain way in the culture, white privilege, and therefore they do well. And kids that look a different way and don't have as much money don't do well. But it's like pretending that mom and dad don't actually matter to children. And we're saying, if you boil it down to just the most basic reality, I only exist because I have one mother and one father. And we at them before us, we're saying, I have a natural right to those two people. And the best way to be united to them, for them to be united to me, is to have them united to each other with the institution of marriage. The government should, at the very least, not incentivize it away, incentivize single parenthood and incentivize me being an orphan, those sorts of things. But we would say should probably offer incentives to keep mom and dad together raising their children. That would save the state money in the long run. But it's because that one man and one woman offer me identity that no one else can offer me. They offer me masculine and feminine love that can be offered to me by other individuals, but not in the same way, not from the two people who literally created me, who are half of my genetic identity, half of my family history, right? Half of my medical history. And this came to mind as well, as there's kind of that I don't remember his name, but a researcher who talked about watching your mom and dad love each other was one of the only ways kids could feel loved by proxy. And it did not work when you just saw random other adults that loved each other. Like my mom and her boyfriend love each other, and I see them holding hands in the kitchen. Does not make me feel loved. It makes me miss my dad.
Hmm.
Right. So I just think when we kind of think just in terms of nuts and bolts, well, education and money, because we don't recognize that those two humans, mom and dad, are actually really significant to their children.
I'd add just one more thing. I think the dialectic you set up was perfect. Would we, was a kid going to do better with a single mom with resources, or a married mom and dad, without, or with a lower level? But one thing to include there is the data also shows us that married moms and dads do better financially. That
Mhm.
you cover for each other. You can watch the kids while you go to work, I go to work, or cover for you when you're sick, or allow the space for you to, go pursue another career for a time while I'm home. Like there's a level of teamwork and sharing of resources and efficiency and inspiration between, wanting to do well for the other one. Like the one of the best things a man can do is get married. It makes him work harder. It makes
Mhm.
him earn more. Like, so you go through that list too, and you go, oh, but it isn't just a single parent with resources versus, it is also that the nature of the institution also produces more reliably those same resources too. So over 100 tries, you're going to produce more, resource laden married families than the single parent who can accumulate those on their own.